You know that phone in your pocket? Every time you use it, you're playing by a certain set of rules. But have you ever stopped to think about who actually writes those rules? Well, it turns out that question sparked a massive legal war that went all the way to the Supreme Court, putting the biggest phone companies in the country head to head with the government. Okay, let's get into it. So, who really calls the shots for your phone? Is it the company that sells you the service? Or is it a government agency that's supposed to be looking out for you, the consumer? This one question is what kicked off a legal firestorm that honestly changed the entire telecom industry. All right, so let's rewind. The year is 2000. The National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC, basically the government's watchdog for all things telecom, decided it was time to shake things up. They put out a brand new set of rules, a memorandum circular, that was designed to give us consumers a much, much fairer deal. And let's be clear, these proposed changes were a huge deal for regular people. I mean, think about it. A prepaid SIM that's good for 2 years, not getting charged when your call goes to voicemail, and getting billed in 6-second chunks instead of by the whole minute. These were some seriously pro-consumer ideas. So yeah, the NTC's mission here was crystal clear. Make the whole system way more transparent and really tip the scales back in favor of the everyday phone user. For a booming industry like this, it was a pretty bold move. But as you can probably guess, the telecom giants, well, they were not happy at all. We're talking the heavy hitters, Smart, Globe, Piltel, and Islacom. They looked at these new rules and didn't see consumer protection. They saw a direct assault on their bottom line. And they decided they were going to fight back and fight back hard. And this, right here, just perfectly lays out the two sides of the coin. On one hand, you have the NTT saying, hey, we're just doing our job, regulating a public service to protect people. But on the other side, you have the telcos firing back, saying, no way, these rules are oppressive, they're confiscatory, which is a fancy way of saying they're taking our property, and most importantly, they're unconstitutional. So the telco's legal argument was basically a three-pronged attack. First, they said the NTC didn't even have the power to make these rules. Second, they claimed the rules themselves were totally unfair, especially the 2-year validity for prepaid cards, which they said would kill their business model. And third, they argued the whole thing was just an illegal move that violated their rights. With the battle lines drawn, the telcos took their fight to the courts. And this wasn't going to be some quick, simple case. No, this was the beginning of a legal roller coaster that would last for years, bouncing from court to court with each one having a totally different opinion. Just look at this timeline. You can see how wild it got. The telcos filed our case and boom, a month later, they win. The lower court sides with them and stops the NTC's rules. But then, a year later, the Court of Appeals comes in and completely flips the script, siding with the NTC. With the lower courts in a total deadlock, there was only one place left to go to settle this thing for good: the Supreme Court. Now, when the case got to the Supreme Court, they had to answer a really deep, fundamental question. This wasn't just about phone billing anymore. It was about what kind of power a government agency like the NTC actually has. You see, they can wear two different hats. They can be a rulemaker, or they can be a judge. And the court had to figure out which hat the NTC was wearing here. So the first hat is what's called quasi-legislative power. It's a fancy legal term, but all it really means is rulemaking. This is when an agency creates big, broad rules that apply to everybody in an entire industry, kind of like a mini Congress, but just for that one area. The other hat is quasi-judicial power, and this is when the agency acts more like a judge. They investigate specific situations, they hold hearings, and they make a decision on a specific fight between two parties based on the rules that already exist. Okay, let's make this super simple. Think of it like a basketball league. Rulemaking, that quasi-legislative power, is the league office deciding, you know what, from now on, the three-point line is going to be out here. It's a broad rule for all future games. Judging, that quasi-judicial power, is the referee on the court blowing the whistle and saying, you committed a foul. It's a specific call in a specific moment. So this was the absolute core question for the Supreme Court. When the NTC issued these new billing rules for everyone, was it drawing a new three-point line for the entire league, or was it calling a foul on a specific play? Was this rulemaking, or was it judging? And the answer to that one question was going to determine everything. It would decide if the telcos even had the right to sue in the first place, and it would set a huge precedent for how you and I, or any company, can challenge government regulations from now on. And the Supreme Court's verdict came down, and it was absolutely clear. They said the NTC, when it issued that circular with all the new rules, was acting as a rulemaker. It was using its quasi-legislative power. It was drawing a brand new three-point line for the whole industry. Here's why that is such a massive deal. The court basically said that if a government agency makes a rule that you think is unconstitutional, you can take them straight to court. You don't have to go back and complain to the same agency that made the rule. This confirms the power of the courts to check government agencies, and it meant that telcos were right to sue. So the Supreme Court sent the case back down to the lower court to finally decide if the rules themselves were actually fair or not. And this is why this whole story matters so much, way beyond our phone bills. It reinforces one of the most important principles of our government: checks and balances. It's a powerful statement that our courts are there to make sure that government agencies, even when they have the best intentions, don't overstep their power or create rules that are illegal or unfair. So this whole legal showdown leaves us with a really important question to think about. It settled the fact that we can challenge a regulator's rules, but it doesn't tell us where that perfect line is. How do you protect consumers with strong rules without crushing the businesses that provide the service? The question isn't just if a rule can be challenged, but when it should be. And honestly, that's a debate that's still going on right now.